If your EV battery dies, are you on the hook of $20,000 and a new life of instant noodles and a tap water? Or is that number you keep seeing on Facebook actually nonsense? Let's talk about the bill that every EV hater loves to scream about. Every EV owner secretly worries about, and almost nobody actually understands it. Because the real cost of an EV battery replacement isn't just one number. It depends on what failed, when it failed, where you live, who's doing the work, and how long you plan to keep the car. Hello everyone, I'm Shayan, an engineer specialized in electric vehicle development. In this video, we are going to unpack all of that in plain language, not brand fanboy talk, not doom posts, just the mechanics of how these packs fail, what people actually pay in the real world, and what that means for you if you own, lease, or are thinking about buying an EV. By the end, you should be able to answer one big question for yourself. Is a battery replacement a realistic risk I need to budget for, or just a horror story used to farm clicks and keep me scared? The scary headlines versus boring realities. You've probably seen screenshots like this. Dealer quoted me $25,000 for a brand new battery. The battery costs more than the car is worth. EV totaled because of battery damage. Those stories are not all fake. Some are real, but they are also the most dramatic edge cases, and they miss all the context. Here's the boring truth. In most modern EVs, the battery pack is the single most expensive component in the car. If you go to a dealer and ask for a brand new pack, fully assembled with OEM parts and dealer labor, the quote can easily land in five figures range. For some early long-range cars, you might see raw quotes from $10,000 to $20,000, depending on the brand and the region. For smaller packs, think 5 to 10,000. For newer chemistries and cheaper cars, the trend is slowly downward, but we are still talking many thousands, not hundreds. If you walk into the main dealer with no warranty and your car request is basically give me a brand new pack at the full retail, you may see a number that makes you feel sick. But that is not the whole story. Because most EV owners will never ever buy a full price brand new pack during the normal life of the car. To understand why, you have to separate three ideas that people always mix together: catastrophic failures, annoying degradation, and accidental damage. Each one has a very different cost profile. Catastrophic failure, when the car just dies. Catastrophic failure is the nightmare scenario. You park your car, everything seems fine, and one day it refuses to drive, throws a million errors, and the diagnosis says high voltage battery fault. It sounds like a game over, but here's the key question. How old is the car and how many kilometers has it done? Most modern EVs come with a battery warranty of around 8 years and around 160 to 240,000 kilometers, with some slight differences between brands and regions. The details matter, but the general pattern is similar. If your pack has a true internal failure inside that window and you didn't abuse it in some weird way that breaks the terms, you're usually not paying for a new pack out of the pocket. The manufacturer is. Sometimes they repair the pack at module level. Sometimes they swap it for refurbished unit. Sometimes you actually get a brand new pack. From your side, the cash cost is zero or close to zero. Though obviously being without the car for a while is still painful. So the question is not how much is a new pack. The more important question is how likely is the catastrophic failure after the warranty ends. So far, real-world data shows that true pack thefts are rare, especially in mainstream models from brands that have been building EVs for a while. There are cases for sure, but they're not everyone's battery dies at year 10. When you see a horror story about a huge quote for a dead pack, look carefully. Many of those cars are old, out of warranty, early generation models with small packs and weaker thermal management system. Basically the EV version of an early flat screen TV, not the current generations. That doesn't mean modern EVs are immortal though. It means catastrophic pack theft is not the default outcome. Degradation, the slow pain you actually feel. The second scenario is a lot more common. The battery doesn't fail, it just ages. You buy a car that once showed 400 kilometers of range when new, and a few years later it shows 350, then 320, then maybe less in winter. That is degradation. The pack is still functional, it just holds less energy than it used to. Here's the part warranty fine prints actually cover. Most EV battery warranties don't promise no degradation. They promise they'll fix it if it drops below a certain capacity threshold within the time and mileage limit. A typical number is around 70% of original usable capacity. Some brands use 65, some 80, but 70-ish is common. So if your pack drops from 100 to 90 to 85% over 8 years, that is annoying, but it's usually not something the manufacturer pays to fix. It is considered normal wear and tear. That means you have a gray zone. The car still drives, but the range loss starts to affect your life. Maybe if your winter commute is now stressful, maybe your favorite road trip needs more stops. At that point, there are three options. You live with it, you sell the car and move on, or you consider some form of battery work. This is where the real cost thing gets interesting because you don't necessarily have to buy a brand new, full price pack from the main dealer. In some markets, there are independent shops that specialize in EV battery diagnostics and repair. They may replace one big module inside the pack, they may install a reconditioned pack, or they may source a used pack from a salvage vehicle. Those routes can cost a fraction of a brand new pack. Think of high three figures to a few thousand, not 20,000. It depends on the car, the availability of parts, and how deep the damage goes. Is it still a big expense? Yes. Is it always the battery costs more than the car? No. The real problem today is that the whole aftermarket is patchy. In some regions, especially where EVs have been around for longer, you have more options. In others, you're basically stuck with dealer or nothing. So if you plan to keep an EV for 10, 15 years, it is worth checking what supports exist for your specific model in your area, not just now. But what is likely to exist when your car is old? Accident damage. The third scenario has nothing to do with degradation or defects. It is accident or underbody damage. Modern EV packs are usually built into the floor of the car. This is great for handling and packaging, but it means a strong hit from below or a bad curb or debris on the road can damage the pack housing. Sometimes that damage is cosmetic, sometimes it cracks the case, bends the structure, or threatens the water ingress. Insurance companies often do not want to mess around with partial repairs at cell or module level. If the pack has structural damage or any risk of fault failure, the safer route on paper is to replace the whole thing. Even if the cells themselves are fine, the cost of a new pack and labor can be high enough that the car is declared a total loss, especially if it is older and depreciated. That's where the EV written off because of minor damage stories come from. The real cost to you in this scenario is not I had to buy a new battery. It is my car was totaled and I had to deal with the insurance and replacement. This is a valid concern, but the risk is mostly tied to how the car is insured and how conservative the local repair ecosystem is, not to some secret battery tax hiding in the purchase. How pack prices are changing over time. Now let's talk about the underlying trend, because this is one of those things that gets frozen in people's minds. Ask someone who hates EVs how much a battery costs, and they will often quote numbers from 10 years ago. The cost to build battery packs has been dropping overall as the industry scales. There are bumps from raw material prices, but the long-term direction is downward. The dollar per kilowatt hour number that people use as benchmark has fallen a lot compared to the early days. What does that mean for you? First, a replacement pack for a car that's 10 or 15 years old might actually be cheaper in the future than it would be if you somehow had to buy it today. You're not locked into today's cost structure forever. Second, not every battery job is a full pack swap. As diagnostics get better and the independent repair board matures, more problems will be solved at module or even sub-pack level, instead of throw away the whole pack thing. And third, new EVs today are being designed with future replacement and second life in mind more than first wave ever was. That doesn't mean it will become dirt cheap, but it does mean the direction is toward more options, not fewer. Here's a more grounded way to think about it. In an internal combustion car, the engine is expensive. If your engine dies out of warranty, or timing chain snaps and destroys it, or you run it with no oil, the repair can easily exceed the value of an old car. Does that mean engines are scam? No, it means major components are expensive, and if they fail late in the car's life, it's often not worth fixing it. The EV battery pack is the same class of component. It is not consumable like wiper blades or brake pads, it is more like the engine and fuel system combined. So the real question is not, can I afford the battery replacement someday? It is, do I want to own this car long enough that if a massive failure happens, I might simply walk away and replace the whole car instead of the pack? For a lot of people, the honest answer is yes. They lease. They change cars every 5 to 8 years. They drive under the warranty kilometers. In that case, the true cost of a battery replacement is basically zero in their personal risk model, because they'll hand back the car or sell it long before that becomes their problem. For people who love keeping cars 15 years, doing their own maintenance and driving them into the ground, it's a bit different. For that group, the battery replacement cost is worth factoring into the long tail. But even then, it's not a guaranteed event. It is one possible big repair, just like an engine rebuild or on a high mileage diesel. Where the real cost of battery replacements becomes more important is in the used market. If you're buying a 10-year-old EV with high mileage, you need to think about the pack differently than someone buying new. You should ask, what is the current state of health? How much usable range is left versus original? How many years of battery warranty, if any, remains? Are there local specialists who can diagnose and repair this model of pack if needed? If the car already has a heavily degraded battery, you may be able to use that as a leverage to get a lower price and budget for a future battery job. Or you may decide it is not worth the risk and choose a different model with better history or cheaper replacement options. In other words, the real cost of a potential battery replacement gets priced into the purchase. That is how the market will naturally balance it over time. It is not fundamentally different to buying a high mileage turbo diesel and thinking, if the turbo injectors and DPF go, is the car still worth fixing it? There are also non-obvious costs around battery work that are worth mentioning. Even if a pack job is covered by warranty, you'll still pay in time. You might be without the car for days or weeks. You might need a rental. There's stress, uncertainty, and the hassle of dealing with service departments. If you go the independent route after warranty, you may save money compared to the dealer prices, but you might have to travel to a specialist city, argue with your insurance, or accept some experiment risk if the shop is pioneering repairs on your exact model. These are real costs. They are just not printed on an invoice. On the flip side, EVs also remove a long list of big ticket items that can go wrong in combustion cars. No exhaust system, no catalytic converter, no fuel pump, no gearbox with hundreds of moving parts, no oil changes every 10,000 kilometers. That doesn't make them magical. It just shifts the risk profile. So when you think about the real cost of battery replacements, it is fair to also think about the real cost of everything that is no longer in the car. Total cost of ownership lives on the both sides. Let's pull everything into one simple picture. Yes, EV battery packs are expensive parts. Yes, if you demand a brand new pack out of a warranty from a dealer, the quote can be 5 figures. Yes, in rare bad cases, an EV can be written off because of pack damage or costs. But no, this doesn't mean every EV owner is sitting on a guaranteed $20,000 time bomb. For most drivers, catastrophic pack failures inside 8 years and typical mileage is covered by warranty. Degradation is usually slow enough that practical range remains usable far beyond the warranty period. By the time you reach the age where the pack replacement is even on the table, many people will have swapped cars anyway. And for those who don't, the future will likely offer more options than just one eye-watering dealer quote. The real cost of EV battery replacement is not one number. It is a probability game mixed with your ownership style, your local repair ecosystem, and how long you like to keep your car. If you treat a battery pack like an engine, rarely replaced, expensive if it goes, covered for the early years, you're pretty close to the right mental picture. If you treat it like a phone battery that dies every 3 years and must be replaced, you're imagining a world that doesn't match the real data from high mileage EVs is showing. In the end, the smartest move is not to obsess over absolute worst case. It is to understand the risk, choose a model with a solid track records, respect the battery with decent charging habits, and decide honestly how long you intend to keep the car. If you do that, the real cost of battery replacement becomes just one line in a bigger story, not the monster under the bed. If you want to go deeper and learn more about the battery management system inside these cars, you can click on the course in the description.